I didn't meet them. I didn't know them. Today, they are very much part of my life. Not only to question my faith, but to enhance my life. And so the values that the Charter do not address are the following ones. The religious communities have dealt with secularization in many different ways, notwithstanding wrongs committed. We have done this in every century, trying to be able to understand what it is to be in a secular society. The Jew in the non-Jew world, the Christian in the Muslim world, the Muslim in the Christian world, we in today's multi-faith world. It does not address the fact that the religious communities have been wrongly accused of certain actions committed in the name of religion, but it was a wrong interpretation of religion. And the separation of church and state that we seem to hang our hat on is that there would be no national religion, thank God, because we could have a God-intoxicated religion influencing all of us, and that would be the most atrocious thing to happen in the name of religion. The idea of secular in opposition to profane, we've left that behind because it was based on a false division of the natural and the supernatural orders. The community context of religion, which should highlight the great accomplishments of religious communities and their contributing to the future of Quebec, because we've worked together in the past. We're not going to stop working together in the future. Interfaith cooperation attested to by common activities to bring justice where there is injustice, to uphold human rights, to work together to make this world a better world. That needs us to walk in the public square, to be together and be proud to be together. I'm a priest. I'm a Catholic priest. I haven't worn a collar in 45 years. But I haven't worn a collar because I'm scared to be a Catholic. I didn't want to identify with institutional religion. I'd rather identify with the religion of the people. Our different religious traditions, our respective historical and cultural evolutions, West, and our determined efforts to right the past, where there were wrongs, we've done a lot together. Tomorrow is a better day. Today is the best day because we've come together to say yes to each other.
Thank you. I'm going to go back and forth a bit between our two languages. Let me start by asking the question, is there a problem? The answer is yes, there is, but it is not the one postulated by the proponents of the Charter. The problem is our long-standing existential one, that living here in this predominantly French-speaking part of North America, we represent less than 2% of the total population of the continent, and we have the challenge of survival. Survival in terms of language, survival in terms of tradition and history. Il y a un problème corollaire dont nous parlons moins souvent. C'est une différence entre Canadiens qui parlent anglais et Canadiens qui parlent français quant à la nature même du Canada. Pour la forte majorité des Canadiens qui parlent anglais, ce qui est arrivé en 1867, c'est que 4 provinces se sont entendues pour créer notre pays. Et par la suite, nous sommes devenus 10 provinces et nous sommes toutes égales. Pour le Canadien qui parle français et surtout pour le Québécois qui parle français, la Confédération était une entente entre deux peuples et la majorité a accepté de respecter la minorité. Et cette différence de perception persiste. Mais lorsque nous regardons la condition sociale, la condition humaine chez nous, nous ne constatons pas que les religions sont en train d'envahir l'espace public et ses institutions. Il n'y a pas de crise quotidienne, ni même mensuelle, d'accommodement raisonnable. Et il n'y a pas, et c'est la Commission des droits de la personne qui vient de le souligner, il n'y a pas de vide législatif et juridique quant à la protection des droits et notamment l'égalité homme-femme. Where does the Jewish community stand in this regard? What did we say to the Bouchard-Taylor Commission? We said, to begin with, that we hold to a dictum which was enunciated in the 3rd century of the Common Era by an intellectual whose name was Samuel, and he said, Dina de Malchuta, Dina, the law of the land is the law. We established that principle at the outset of our brief. And we went on to say, and I will quote 3 paragraphs from our brief. We spoke of our 2.5 centuries of presence here, and our 2.5 centuries of reasonable accommodation to the majority society around us. And we said, therefore, la majorité a ses droits. À la continuité, au non-chambardement de sa société, à la reconnaissance du fait qu'elle a façonné le Québec d'aujourd'hui et au maintien de ses valeurs. Elle a, en outre, en même temps, le devoir de reconnaître qu'elle n'a pas toujours été seule à effectuer ce façonnement de la société et que d'autres y ont et auront loyalement contribué, à chacun d'apprécier la contribution de l'autre. Ensuite, il importe de souligner que les immigrants font face à des défis d'apprentissage, d'adaptation, d'immigration et d'intégration et de carrière. Mais leurs enfants, scolarisés et socialisés chez nous, auront en majorité des relations assez différentes avec l'ensemble de la société. Et nous avons dit, la tenue vestimentaire et le port de symboles religieux devraient être des choix personnels. When I put on my kippah, I do not become less fair-minded, less objective, less Québécois. Certainly, in order for all of us in our exceptional diversity to feel a part of this society, the institutions of the society have to be equitable with regard to all of us and not take account of our particularities of religion and appearance and so on. But that refers to the institutions, and that's different from imposing obligations on individuals. It's paradoxical that just a few years ago, yes, it was a different government that did it, but the present government has not made any attempt to change it. We introduced into what used to be a religiously identified school system and is now a linguistically secular school system, we introduced a new course which looks at the diversity of religious identity in the world and helps young people to have a better understanding of that diversity. It's paradoxical that in the face of that, we are proposing to do something quite different. Let me say one final thing, and it brings me back to what Rabbi Grushko said at the very outset of this afternoon. She spoke of bringing people together. This kind of legislation should be brought in by broad consensus. And clearly that consensus does not exist. There is a selective consensus within certain groups. But we are all in this together. And I recall that René Lévesque said, a Quebecer is anyone who chooses to live here and to pay his or her taxes. I would like to remind my brothers and sisters who are proponents of the Charter of what the founder of the Parti Québécois said. I am taking the advantage of being the last person to speak to express my thanks to all those who are sitting here before you, and to say how much we appreciate their contributions to a high-level discussion of a very serious subject, and thank all of you for being here.
Merci à vous tous. Quelle riche collection de voix, quelle conversation inspirante et aussi constructive, un bel ensemble d'idées et des projets personnels et aussi collectifs et aussi pour notre société ici au Québec. So now we have some time to turn it over again to you, and again I will count off 4 people at a time and then turn it back, and so we'll start like that. I promised Menachem, you're number 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Menachem Friedman. I'm a law student at McGill, and I'm mentioning that because if this bill does ever become a bill, if it passes, I stand a fairly decent chance of being directly discriminated against by it. If I decide to become a lawyer in the public service, if I am ever appointed to be a judge, I'd have to take off my kippah. So while I fully agree with Professor Weinstock's insistence that this would be an incident of collateral damage, it would still be damage nonetheless. My question is for the faith and community leaders that are here, and I think that this whole debate around the Charter has showed us one sort of schism within Quebec society between people of faith and people who support a certain view of freedom of religion, and others who don't. But I think it's also exposed another schism, which is between different faith communities. And a perfect example of this was the first protest against the Charter. Unfortunately, was on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. A lot of Jews weren't able to attend for that reason. So what I wanted to ask the faith leaders and the community leaders on this roundtable is, what are the steps, the concrete steps that you plan on taking to increase this interfaith dialogue and this interfaith activism, and especially to non-Muslim leaders, what are the steps that you're going to take within your communities to combat this rising wave of Islamophobia that is probably brought along this Charter in the first place?
So again, we'll take the 3 more and then we'll come back. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My My name's Joy Kennedy, and I represent the Canadian Council of Churches here, as well as what's known as the Canadian Interfaith Conversation. I didn't just miss the Shabbat nap, but it was a long drive from Toronto. And wanted to say thank you for inviting us to listen, to hear the concerns, to hear the ideas, to hear the discourse, because in the interfaith conversation, we've been having a conversation about what does what's going on in Quebec mean for what's going on throughout Canada, and indeed through what's going on through the world. In some ways, Quebec is under the microscope right now on this particular, at this particular time, and everyone outside is watching with great interest in terms of what's going to happen. To hear voices such as yours today is incredibly helpful as we try to discern and understand what does this mean for freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, and indeed, as our Sikh brother here said, according to Andrew Bennett, the ambassador for the Office of Religious Freedom, what does it mean for pursuit of truth? So as we are in this kind of discernment time for issues emerging across the country, we are very heartened by the level of discourse that is going on here, and we thank you for trying to listen and learn from it. And I would say that Victor Goldbloom is very much a part of this pan-Canadian conversation, and we're grateful for the insights he brings to it. So thank you again for the opportunity, but also to say that it is really important that you also find a way of transmitting the learning that you're doing to the rest of the world. It's critical for us to all move forward on this one small planet in religious harmony. Thank you.